Well, the big game, otherwise known by most people as the Super Bowl, is something that draws the attention of millions upon millions of people, both here in the United States and around the globe. But it has also become a very important advertising component for companies as well. Companies expect numerous eyeballs watching that last pro football game of the year, but they're looking to try and connect with the consumer. But the process of actually getting to that point and making those decisions is quite the challenge. How they go about it and what should they be thinking about? Well, we discuss that and more with Wharton's Patty Williams, who's professor of marketing and vice dean of executive education here at Wharton. Great to see you again.
So nice to be here.
So when I think about this idea of the connection of the advertising component with the football game, I think a lot of people normally associate going back to 1984 with the Apple spot, correct?
So at least that's, I think, in popular culture when the Super Bowl became a thing. I think there were always Super Bowl ads before that. I'm sure advertisers were spending time and money making great Super Bowl ads. But I think that ad really showed them the outsized impact that just the right ad in that context could actually have.
It is amazing, though, to see how much, when you think about this event, that it's not just a football game. I mean, it has become the importance of the commercials and people watching them and wanting to see what they are, for many people, is just as important.
Just as important. In fact, I was looking at Adweek earlier, and I think I saw a little quote that said, "At Adweek, the Super Bowl is our Super Bowl."
So companies know that they're going to have the eyeballs. But what are they looking for beyond the eyeballs?
Yeah, well, maybe let me just step back and say the eyeballs for 1 second, right? Yeah. They're forecasting that this year's ratings will be somewhere between 115 and 120 million people tuning in. That gives you, even with an $8 million 30-second ad, something like a $71 cost per thousand, which is expensive, but not outrageously expensive, right? The price is a lot, but the viewership it's really the only mass audience that's left in the United States in many ways. And not only is it a mass audience, so you're going to get, roughly 115 or 120 million people. 2/5 of them in recent surveys have said they tune in just to watch the ads. That's tens of millions of people who are there just to watch the ads. And even those who say they're going to, they're tuning in primarily for the game, go Birds. Maybe they're tuning in with a little extra engagement and interest around those ads. They're not using the ads as an opportunity to get up and walk out of the room quite as much. And so they get this deeply engaged audience that is at scale. And I think an opportunity to really show the world who they are and why the brands could be beneficial or meaningful to that audience.
So if we're seeing ad buy rates at like $8 million for a spot, I would imagine there's a point where the company has to say, okay, maybe it's too much for us. They will make that call, but it still feels like there are a lot of companies where they haven't reached that plateau yet.
No, and it goes up every single year.
Yeah.
And you see many of the same companies returning year after year after year, right? If you see a Super Bowl and there's not multiple Budweiser ads, there aren't Doritos ads. At this point, I think we've come to expect GoDaddy. Not only are they making that decision once, but they're making that decision year over year over year.
Yeah. So what the type of ad that they want to bring forward, I guess, depends on the company, maybe some dynamics of what's going on in culture right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. And if you look at the, what's worked well in the Super Bowl over time, maybe as well as what you tend to see, I would say you tend to see a few, for the most part, they're lighthearted with some exceptions. They are aligned with culture, and one big way companies do that is by bringing in celebrities. You get the extra oomph of the eyeballs and the interest that they bring, but it also immediately aligns you with culture in some way. Humor is super important, right? You're going to see lots of funny ads. People are looking to laugh at the ads in the Super Bowl, and hopefully companies will actually deliver, though it's harder to do that than it seems like it should be. Once in a while, you get ads that I would describe as moving. Maybe those P&G Thanks Mom ads, in the years of the Olympics. I hear that Budweiser has the Clydesdales back this year, and people are saying it's an amazing ad, and it has a little bit of that moving, Americana that they're so well known for. You get a lot of animals doing dumb things, yes. Right? And once in a while, you get an ad that's really a little more informational. I think about the original WeatherTech ads. telling people who they were and what WeatherTech actually was.
Yeah. So there's not one right formula to getting the perfect Super Bowl spot, to getting that hook.
No, there's not one right formula, I don't think. I mean, the breakout ads tend to be funny or tend to be moving. I think so. You see advertisers pushing and dialing up the emotional components in particular, because I think people are looking for that emotional engagement in the moment.
We're in a time where certainly AI is a conversation piece for so many right now, and it's being talked about in the world of advertising. Are we there right now, or soon will be there, where some of these ads are probably going to lean heavily on AI?
I think we're probably already there, but most of these advertisers seem to be keeping their use of AI a little bit behind the scenes, in part because I think they know users aren't quite sure how they feel about it. The talent in ads really isn't sure how they feel about it. So I saw, I think it was Ad Age, they contacted 39 advertisers. 31 of them said they had no AI in their ads or declined to answer. So, maybe they are. It's pretty clear some are using it, and I think Google in particular, which is doing this interesting thing. They're launching 50 regional ads, one for every state, and they are saying we used Google Gemini in the ideation stage, maybe in the image creation process. So some are being very upfront about it, and I think some are doing it a little bit behind the scenes.
Do you have a favorite that stands out? I mean, maybe that's like asking you who your favorite child is, but I mean, there's so many great ads that we've seen over the course of the year.
Yeah, I'm always a sucker for the Budweiser Clydesdale ads. I think they're just great. Probably my favorite Super Bowl ad of all time is actually a Snickers ad, and I think it was in the 2010 Super Bowl. Betty White was in the ad.
Okay.
And I just think that ad hit the right notes on humor, hit the right notes around the brand. You're not when you're hungry, you might turn into Betty White at the last moment, right? And just was, I think, a standout because it was a well-executed little 30-second spot that really sat in the sweet spot of who they wanted to be as a brand and how they wanted to show up.
But the story of doing these ads is usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're tying it into some other campaign that company is bringing forward. And so it's just part of the overall process, correct?
It depends. For some, the Super Bowl is where you launch a new campaign. Maybe it's the big platform to, set out who you're going to be and how you want to show up in the future. For some, I would say there's a campaign of ads at the Super Bowl, but not necessarily do those Super Bowl ads sit within a bigger campaign. Doritos has had a competition for years. So there is a campaign. You can compete to create the Doritos ad, but those Doritos ads don't really sit right next to the rest of the ads that Doritos is running the rest of the year.
So what do companies expect then on the back end, after the game, after the spot runs that first time?
Well, I'm going to say they actually start expecting things before the game even runs. Okay. They are running their teasers, and they are hoping they're getting engagement and people watching the teasers or watching the ads before the ads even begin, hopefully picking them up on social media, starting to maybe be intrigued by what the real ad's going to look like, or starting to learn a little bit about the brand. They're definitely going to be watching social media during the Super Bowl. Are the ads being shared on social media? What's the reaction to those ads? Immediately afterwards, they're going to do everything from looking at just likability. Do people say they liked the ad or they didn't like the ad, to looking at maybe long-term ROI, maybe even doing neuroimaging studies in response to the ads. Right. They're looking at all of those things, and I think one of the big things they're looking at in a lot of these CPG companies is they're trying to show the ads aren't just for their consumers. They're showing their retailers how much energy and commitment they have behind their products and what they're doing to drive traffic to the stores. And so I think you're going to see them looking for things like sales of these products or traffic in the stores.
But the component of social media, it brings the unique dynamic of that in-time reality of people either tweeting or Instagramming or whatever platform it is about the spot. I'm sure there are probably even people that take video on their phone of the spot so they can loop it again, and it's changed the dynamics of how quickly companies are seeing that return on investment, that connection with the consumer.
Absolutely, and they're relying on immediate amplification. You and I are going to do their work for them and help them get more than $8 million worth of value from it. I think that's right. And you say some brands who are going to try to time something that they're going to launch on social media to right around, right before, during, or right after their ad actually shows. And the ad might even drive you to social media, or it's going to pop up in your feed at the same moment, and they're going to hope that you might interact. Maybe you're going to click through and buy, or click through and learn at the same time.
But because this is a once a year event, it puts more emphasis on the message that's being delivered, how you deliver it, the connection with the consumer, more so than the World Series or the NCAA tournament or, a premiere of a show on a TV channel. It has separated itself from everything else kind of in the media landscape.
Yeah, there just aren't this many viewers, even, in the Final Four or anything like that, and certainly not as broad an audience, right? You get people who wouldn't normally be watching a football game, tuning in and watching this game. So not only is it at scale, but it's a breadth of audience and a depth of audience at scale, and there's a lot at risk. I think that's right. You even see some that had thought they were going to advertise and they pulled out because they thought it was too risky, right? State Farm decided in the wake of the fires and the insurance premiums going up and so on that this wasn't a good time, and it felt too risky to follow through with the, ad they presumably already filmed and spent a lot of money on.
Yeah. Patty, great to see you again. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, Dan.
Thank you. Patty Williams, Professor of Marketing and Vice Dean of Executive Education here at the Wharton School.